to this Precizion podcast, and today I'm joined by Susan Nightingale, a fellow physiotherapist, and I hope Susan won't mind me sharing with you, also she is a woman of a certain age, like myself.
Yeah.
So hi Susan, how are you today?
I'm fine today, I'm all right, I'm coping well today.
Good, that's good to hear, because yeah, it is a time of challenge, isn't it? There's no doubt about that. So we're here today to talk about Pilates, bone health, our experiences of the menopause, and how exercise is going to feature for us moving forwards. I know already that you have, a plan in place for your exercise.
Yes.
That we've talked about in the past. So tell me a little bit about what you do for your own body.
Well, I was finding that I was getting all sorts of aches and pains and hip pain and difficulty in standing for any length of time, and seeing as quite a lot of my life revolved around taking my son to football matches, standing for more than 40 minutes would hurt my back and I get quite uncomfortable. So I decided that I really needed to invest in actually making a serious effort rather than just trying to, although you're a physio and it's always hard to try and heal yourself. You're great at giving everybody else tips and advice, but actually doing it for yourself, it always seems to be something else that gets in the way. So I made a concerted effort to go and see a physiotherapist through work, and did the regime of exercises, and I just was really surprised at how weak I was when I was formally tested in my muscles. And I'm still what I think of as being active, but obviously I'd lost quite a lot of muscle bulk as I'd aged and had become less active, because where we live it's easy to get in the car, you have to drive everywhere and you do a small amount of walking, but actually it's not very hilly in Lincolnshire, so
no.
So that's where I took my point from, and then I decided I needed to do more impact work as well. So I started doing fitness classes that were with.
I think that's a good point that you make, though. That it's something that creeps up on us, and we don't necessarily see it coming, do we? This, and that's your body is very happy to work within the boundaries. And it's only really when you start to push the boundaries, doing something unfamiliar perhaps, or like you say, something for a prolonged period of time, that your body starts to complain.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the times that we can trick ourselves. Well, I still walk about, I'm still active. Well, I used to work on a 7th floor building, and I would take the stairs twice a day. That was my exercise. Well, I haven't done that for quite a long time, but in my head I still thought that I was, even though I'm just only walking to the shops and back. So I think it's very easy to trick ourselves that we're being more active than we actually are, And I think just with changes in circumstances, moves and family dynamics, or when the kids are little and you put them on your backpack, you're doing loads of weight bearing exercise then, pushing prams, things like that. And then as they get older and they're off doing their own thing, you're standing at the touchline watching them do something.
That's right. And I think you mentioned there putting load through the bones, through the axis of the spine and through the long bones in the legs. And that's our bones will respond to that by becoming stronger. And so that is something that definitely in the first 5 to 7 years after the menopause, we lose something in the region of 20% of our bone mass. And I mean, that's huge.
It's huge, isn't it? It's huge. And it's something that you've probably worked at building up for quite a period, and then maybe before the menopause, just as family circumstances, you might have dropped that off a bit.
The science says that the bulk of our bone building is when we are young.
Yeah.
And so it's the stuff you do actually as children, and that kind of makes me worry a little bit about this generation that are doing more sedentary than ever before. But anyway, I digress. The bulk of the bone is laid down in your youth, and so from that age, particularly the menopause for women, you know, that's going to happen to every woman. It's not optional.
No, no.
You know, it's going to happen to all of us. And I think, you know, sometimes you are ignorant of that through no fault of your own. And like you said, even when you're not, even when you know a lot of this stuff, somehow we manage to fool ourselves into thinking that it's not happening to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's really important that we do those kinds of activities that load the bones. And you know, obviously, if you're starting sooner rather than later, you're going to be able to expose your body to more rigorous forms of exercise.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned high intensity, and so you know, jogging or running would count in that sort of category, wouldn't it? But for some people who maybe a bit more time has passed, then those kinds of activities actually can be detrimental if they're likely to injure themselves, for instance.
Yeah. And I don't like running. It's not something I would do. So I find like doing the exercise class where we have to do small jumps or squats or those sorts of things. Actually, every time I do it, it's quite funny because the person says, oh, we're going to have a lovely shape, a lovely booty. And I just think, no, my bones are going to get stronger. That's my motivation. Every time I have to do a jump and I struggle doing my jumps, I just think that's a bit more, more strength.
Well, I mean, that's awesome, isn't it? Because we were saying before we started chatting about our heritage has a big part to play in our genetic heritage, in, you know, in how things are going to shape up for us, literally the shape of us, you know. And so looking at our family members is sometimes it's a kind of view into the future, isn't it?
Well, I look very much like my dad, so I'd be slightly worried about that one, but you know.
You do look like your dad, but you've definitely got half of your mum in there.
I think I've got some of her, but not an awful lot. But anyhow, yeah. I think I need to look at his mum and see what her shape.
Oh yeah, there's a good point actually. Well, that's right. I mean, of course, it comes from both sides. But you know, the postural element is so crucial, and you know, that's why I particularly love Pilates and yoga for that matter, because you know I do both. This notion that we become more aware generally of the way in which we hold our bodies, and you know, and standing up isn't something that happens passively. It's, you know, we're holding ourselves. If we're in a good position, a good alignment, then invariably there's some muscle activation going on somewhere, isn't there? And you know, and so I love obviously we need to be building the bones through load bearing, but also we need to consider these postural muscles, the muscles that hold us up, and strengthening those muscles and adopting ideal postures. So apparently if you stand against a wall and you measure the distance between the back of your head and the wall, that's an indication of the likelihood that you'll suffer spinal fractures because of the, you know, you can imagine the forward bend away from a wall, for instance. So the more rounded you are, the more likely you are to suffer those spinal fractures where the bones kind of squash down, don't they? I'm showing my hands here. You can't see that.
Wedge fracture.
Yeah. So to think about
posture, you're going to get more compression in that anterior part of your vertebrae, aren't you? So
that's right. And so actually, you know, it's like a bit like chicken and egg. Which comes first, the spinal fracture or the rounded posture? And they may be the, you know, being rounded, a little more rounded forward in your posture actually predisposes you then to have those spinal fractures, and then it's gravity takes over, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think, you know, for our generation, we know a lot more about it, and osteoporosis has been something that people think have been actively campaigning about and improving for, you know, sort of the past 20-25 years, whereas, you know, the likes of our grandmothers wouldn't have ever had that information. You know, that's just what happened. It's a dowager's hump, that's what it was called.
Well, yeah, that's right. Like only dowagers got it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I think you're quite right. There's a lot more awareness than ever there was, but you know, still, the first time a lot of people find out that the bones are not in such good order is when they fall over and fracture. The bone loss occurs due to the lack of estrogen, and if we're replacing the estrogen in our bodies, then that deterioration is arrested. And so invariably, the time that maybe you do stop, if indeed you do stop at all taking this supplement, which needless to say, I haven't started taking yet, but I am seriously considering it. You know, not just for bones, because you know, my memory is so terrible. It would definitely warrant it. But you know, then you sort of, you know, maybe you stop when you're 65, and so the deterioration, the time over which that deterioration is going to potentially occur is much less. And so therefore, I question, I'm curious to know really a bit more about that, I think.
But normally, if you are osteopenic, they'll give you, you know, medication like calcium and calcium supplements and medication for like bone protection. I don't know.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah. But it's kind of the after the horse has bolted, that isn't it? You know. Whereas if the hormones are replaced, then the deterioration is not occurring in the same way. And women are living longer than they were, you know, and who came up with these rules is my sort of question.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting a bit controversial. So coming back to the topic, you know, the posture, the load in the bones, and then finally, you know, we talked about the first time people find out they've got weak bones is when they suffer a fracture sometimes, and maybe balance. Then, of course, that's the other thing that we need to be working towards, developing better balance.
Well, it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing.
And you're a neurological specialist, aren't you? So
yeah,
that's big for you.
I did a lot of work in elderly care, you know, throughout my career, and certainly balance, huge implications on balance. And I worked with one of the girls who, when she first wrote the guidelines for osteoporosis, and started off doing falls group rehab, etc., and things like that. So yeah, you really, you know, you're missing it. You know, people that came to the falls group had a fall, but they may well have had multiple falls before that and had some fractures, and they weren't necessarily all getting referred. And I was saying to you about a friend of mine that's my age, and you know, she wrote to me at Christmas time telling me how she'd had three fractures, and she's 50.
What?
I know, she'd fractured her foot, and she'd fractured her arm, and I think she'd done something else. And you know, she was, you know, an active skier, obviously not in Australia, but you know, when she lived in Scotland, she did skiing and, you know, hill walking, and really healthy outdoor person. So it must be a bit genetic with her, I think. I don't know. I mean, her mum's...
And that's it. You see, no one's immune, are they? Really? The possibility is there, and you know, there are lots of predisposing factors, lifestyle measures such as alcohol consumption and smoking for two.
They rot your bones.
What did you just say?
I say they rot your bones.
They rot your bones. I'm glad you said that.
Well, it might be nice. Too much just rots your bones.
No, too much. Yeah, I like that. I haven't heard it put that way, but it's absolutely true. And then anyone who's had premature menopause and treatment with certain, you know, estrogen inhibiting drugs, for instance, and premature menopause due to surgical intervention. So, you know, it isn't just that people hit these kinds of issues at the menopause. It can come much sooner, like you say. You know, I guess my sort of philosophy on life has always been prevention is better than cure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, you know, if there's active exercises that you can do to take part in it, and that's sort of what I feel, a bit like, you know, your Pilates insurance plan, you know, then we should be taking it out, you know.
Yeah, I know. What better insurance, you know, than insuring your future health and wellness.
Yeah,
So you know, these quality of life measures, a lot of it is around, you know, how far can you walk, how fast can you walk, you know, and actually I read that how fast you walk is a predictor for how long you will live. Uh,
is it?
yeah, I know. I mean, literally, it's got a positive correlation. So being active really is an insurance policy. It's the best policy. And you know, it relatively inexpensive, but think worth the investment at
Yeah,
the end.
yeah, yeah.
So you know, I know I'm preaching to the converted here. But you know, the other thing, so you know, just the sense of well-being that you get, and you might have felt that because you came back to exercise after a period of maybe relative, you know,
Yeah,
thinking everything was okay, and you didn't need to do it, and then you come back to it, and actually, you know, that you just feel so much better for doing it. Is how I feel anyway.
yeah, and it's hard to get started. You know, it is hard, but I think that you have to go with it and try it and just do the bits you can do. That's my philosophy when I do the HIIT classes. I can't do absolutely everything all the time, but I give it a good shot. And that, like today, I could do more mountain climbers than I could do before. And you know, the good thing about Pilates is it's not as stressful on your body. So when you do Pilates, it's a lot more about control, and you can feel yourself having a bit of a wibble or a wobble, and you think, need to just switch on a bit more there. So I'll try and get a bit more control. And it's not that kind of belt-fed exercise.
Yeah, well, so this is the thing that I bleat on about endlessly. You know, the fact that doing the precise, controlled, learning about the muscles, switching on the right muscles at the right time, stabilizing the pelvis and the muscles around the core, invariably then protects you when you go off and do these crazy things that people do, you know, whether it's mountain biking or horse riding or high intensity interval training, you know, whatever it is. And that's, you know, again, what I'm saying about this insurance policy, that it's a means to an end as much as an end. For me, it's an end in itself, but for lots of other people, it is a means to an end, and that a holistic program of training should involve some strengthening, some stretching, and some cardiovascular type jumping around stuff, or even just brisk walking, you know.
Yeah.
So, but like you say, it isn't necessarily something that you get up in the morning thinking, that I must do that today. You know, it's a bit like broccoli. You know, you don't necessarily know that you like it until you actually do it. And so getting over the hump and getting out there and trying something, but you know, doing something new in your day, in your life, add that variety to life, keeps interest. Yeah, try something new, do something different. Don't keep doing the same stuff all the time, because your body gets used to it, your brain gets used to it.
Absolutely.
We've got to keep it guessing, haven't we?
Yeah, and that's the other thing about Pilates, because you're pretty focused while you're doing it. You know, it does give you that opportunity to actually connect and think about how you're moving, and you're only doing it. You're not, as you said today, your mind's not got the ability to wander. It's a phone. Who cares? Someone will answer it. Or not. You know, your mind will think it through. So you're giving your mind a bit of a workout as well, like making that connection and rating how you're doing and feeling it. And if I try this little, if I just move this bit a little bit over and just engage here a bit more, it'll be better. So all that workout is good for your brain too, and the coordination thing as well.
Yeah. So I keep saying it's our Alzheimer's protection policy. I've got quite a few of those funny sayings that. You know, moving arms and legs in opposite directions whilst, you know, breathing in and out and thinking about whether the core muscles are switching on. It's a real workout for the brain. And the brain benefits from that, doesn't it? In lots of ways, as you know, as a a neuro specialist.
But it's also sort of addressing that aspect of mindfulness, if you want, because you're spending time focusing on it, and that's what you're thinking about, you know, and enjoying that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, so many people come to classes and the hour's gone by, and they can hardly believe it's passed because it goes so quickly, and it really is a time to switch off from anything that's bothering you in your day or bothered you up to that point. Anything you've got weighing on your mind, it is a real opportunity to just let that go and focus inward on the body, and so it's fabulous for so many different reasons. I'm so biased, it's not even funny how biased I am, but
I think it feels quite refreshing after a Pilates class. You know, it's not, maybe I'm not working hard enough or at a hard enough level, but I'm working at a level that I can do, and I don't come out and think, oh God, or anything like that, but you come out and you feel toned and you feel kind of connected.
Yeah, and energized.
Yeah. And anything that you're working in your feet, your bare feet, is really good for you as well. That's a really good stimulation again. You know,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I love it. So thanks for spending some time talking with me today about your fitness journey, and it's really great to catch up with you, and let's do it again soon. Thanks, Susan.
Thanks, Ben. Bye.